There is a Cephas kind of person who learns very early in the most, that the world is not going to hand them anything. So they stop waiting to be handed things. They get very good at talking. They build ambition into armor and call it a personality. And from the outside, they look like someone who has everything figured out, like someone who doesn't need anything. But if you watch carefully, if you really watched, you see it. Every single thing they have ever fought for is actually the same question, asked over and over again in every room they ever walk into. Am I worth choosing? Hi, I'm Lila. This is KDrama Perfect Crown, and I need to tell you about two people. A woman named Hazel and a man named Ian. And what happened when these two people who have both been told no their entire life finally, inevitably found each other. And let me start with Hazel because you need to understand her before you can understand anything else. She arrived at her father's house when she was a child, a little girl. She pointed at the man who was her father in front of his wife, in front of his son, and said 4 words. I am your daughter. His wife fainted. And Hazel has been paying for these 4 words ever since. Not because she was wrong, but because she was right. Because she existed, because she had the audacity to show up and refuse to disappear. She learned the rules of the house very quickly. The rules were that her brother was first. Her brother was always first. It didn't matter that he was incompetent. It didn't matter that he ran every opportunity straight to the ground. He had his mother's name and a marriage that connected him to the right people. And at the end of every day, everything that should have been gone to Hazel went to him. So she became the best at everything because it was only things she could control. By the time we meet Hazel as an adult, she is running her own company, Castle Beauty, and she is terrifying in the boardroom. Her executives are afraid of her. She makes decisions other people would spend weeks deliberating over, and she makes them in 30 seconds. She doesn't apologize for any of it. And then one night, she got invited to a royal birthday banquet at the palace. She arrived in a red sports car, wearing a red suit. Cameras were everywhere, flashing, swarming, like she was the event, not just a guest. Watching her in that red suit feels like looking at a version of yourself that you want to be. Something shiny, powerful, on top of the world. And at the same time, you already know she isn't happy. She's not a loyal at a gathering like this. She will enter last behind every person with a title. But within her, she knows she has more ability than any man in that room. And that tension, the internal confidence and the suffocation of the world that she lives in, hides behind her smiling face in front of the cameras. Everything she's showing is performance. She doesn't want to be there. She doesn't care for these people. But within hours, photos of her are on every billboard in the city, and her red suit are still out. She's so good at this. That's almost heartbreaking. Now, Ian, he is the Grand Prince, the second son, the one who is always one step to the side of everything. His whole life has been a preparation for a power that was never actually going to be his, a role that existed to make the real heir look more legitimate by standing next to him. Now, he wore a hunting suit to his nephew's royal birthday party. Not by accident. He knew exactly what the dress code was. He just stopped pretending to want what they wanted him to want. Now, he seemed reserved, elegant in a way that loyals are trained to be elegant. But there is a burning fire inside of him that was starting to lose its containment. A desire for something different, something more that had been held down for so long. It was pressing against the surface. From childhood, he had understood he was never the chosen one. He wanted change, but he hadn't yet found the person who would give him the courage to reach that. And he looks lonely. Not the dramatic kind of lonely, the quiet kind. The kind that comes from spending your whole life in the rooms where everybody needs something from you, but no one actually sees you. He doesn't know yet that the person who's actually going to see him was currently standing in the palace garden, trying to find a cell signal in the red suit. They met that night. Hazel was wondering where she was not supposed to be, and Ian finding her and asking her to leave. But before anything could happen, a fire broke out in a part of the palace. And in that chaos, Hazel saw something. Queen Mother slapping Ian across his face in the courtyard in front of his servants. A slap that carried years of something inside of it. Hazel didn't understand what she had witnessed, so she filed it away. And I'm going to tell you now what was inside that slap, because you need to carry it with you through everything that follows. There was another fire, years before this one, the night the late king, Ian's older brother, died. The fire started because Queen Mother was burning a document, a loyal edict written by her own husband, naming his successor. And the successor he had chosen was not her son. It was Ian. She burned the edict to erase that future. The fire spread and the king died in it. But she never meant for him to die. She only meant to destroy the piece of paper. But there's no version of that night that she can ever explain to anyone. And Ian knows what she did. He has known for a long time. He has simply never said it out loud. So when she slapped him in the courtyard, that slap carrying guilt and fear. And one more thing I can't tell you yet. But hold on to her. She matters more than she seems. Hazel watched Ian on the news a few days later. He was being criticized for the hunting suit. He looked on camera, completely unmoved by what anyone thought of him. And Hazel thought, he would be the right match for me. And what followed was, and I say this with complete affection, absolutely unhinged. She found out her schedule, his horse riding, his restaurant, the cinema he goes to. She started appearing beside him out of nowhere and saying very sweetly, I miss you. At the cinema, at the stables, in the hallways where no one could have been able to reach him. I miss you, she says every single time. He starts to making sure that his outfit is perfect at all times because she might materialize anytime, anywhere. But she submitted a formal meeting request to speak with him, rejected. Try again under a different name, rejected. A business proposal, rejected. 7 or 8 more attempts, all rejected. Finally, she wrote in as a fellow alumna of their shared school, someone who had actually competed against him in archery years ago. That he granted. And at the meeting, she proposed a contract marriage. Ian said, well, he wanted to marry for love. And he said it simply, directly, like someone who still genuinely believes in love, which is maybe a little naive for a man in his position, a loyal whose marriage is supposed to be a political arrangement. But there was nothing cynical in the way he said it. He meant it. And Hazel, to her credit, didn't think he was crazy. She just pivoted immediately. He wants love? Fine. That's what she'll give him, or at least the appearance of it, on a fixed-term contract with a divorce clause built in. Now, he declined, but she showed up again anyway. And while Hazel was chasing a prince, her family was trying to hand her off to somebody else. Her father had match arranged, somebody she found beneath her. And when she resisted, he threatened her to shut down Castle Beauty, the company she built. His leverage has always been the thing she loves, so she went on the date. And she made herself undateable in the most low-key, surgical way possible. She looked across the table and asked, do you have any illegitimate children? No? Well, no one to fight for the inheritance. This woman was fighting a war on 2 fronts, pursuing the marriage that she chose while quietly assassinating the marriages that's being chosen for her. The contract didn't begin with a formal yes, but it began with a scandal. Ian had been unwell and had been staying privately at a hotel. Something he struggled privately is insomnia. He doesn't want anyone to know about it. And Hazel happened to cross paths with his assistant in the hotel courtyard and ended up inside Ian's suite. having arranged a discreet doctor for him without being asked. She even instructed the doctor. He only saw her today. She was protecting Ian's privacy, even before she had any reason to. But Queen Mother found out that Ian was at a hotel and arrived unannounced. His assistant Chad hit Hazel. But when Queen Mother swept through the suite, she found a woman's purse in the sitting room. She went back to the bedroom and found Ian and Hazel together, talking. By the next morning, before Hazel had even gotten up, the entire country had decided they were in a relationship. Photos of them at the hotel, Hazel returning with sandwiches, a doctor spotted coming in and out. The rumor was she was pregnant. The press went into a frenzy. And then Ian did something Hazel didn't expect. He invited her to his private residence to apologize for dragging her into the scandal. He asked how he could make it right. She answered by showing him something she had carried for years. She showed him the dry flowers from their school days, from where the archery competition where she beat him. She had kept these all this time. And she told him everything about her father, about her brother, who's incompetent, but married into minor nobility, so therefore is always first. And her whole life of losing chances, not because she wasn't the best, but because she didn't have a title. She wanted to marry up so that it never happened again. She had never told anyone any of it. And here's the thing that Hazel didn't know and wouldn't know for a very long time. Back at school, when she was improving in archery so fast that the other students started gossiping about her. But Ian was the one who told them to stop. And Ian was also the one who had quietly arranged for the archery range to stay open for extended hours. The practice night she thought she stole for herself, the night she stuck in, furious that everyone around her had access that she didn't, someone had opened that door for her. He had been on her side before she even knew his name meant anything. He had access that she didn't, arranged extra hours, a permit. That was simply because of who he was born as. And instead of guarding that privilege the way that most people guard the smallest advantage they have, he looked at a girl practicing alone in the dark, furious and hungry and completely unwilling to lose. And he opened the door for her, quietly, without ever telling her that it was him. And that's the part that it gets me. He wasn't moved by her title because she didn't have one. He was moved by the fire inside her, the ambition, the refusal to accept no as a permanent answer. Long before he loved her, he recognized her. He listened to all of her story and then he asked her, "So you want to marry me just for a hollow title?" He warned her. Becoming the Grand Prince's wife means standing against the entire nation. And she didn't flinch. And that was the moment. Not a grand speech, not a sign page. He looked at this woman who refused to flinch and said, "Let's see what you can do." He accepted the arrangement because in some part of him, he had already chosen her. She just didn't know yet. The next time that the country saw them, they were walking into the palace together, holding hands in front of a wall of cameras. Now, I want to tell you what was happening underneath all the logistics, because the logistics are not the point. What was happening in between them is, the first night in his quarters, appearances demand them share a room. Hazel built a pillow wall between them in the middle of the bed. He suggested she take the sofa. She told him he's welcome to it. They fell asleep as adversaries, fighting over one blanket. The next morning, she went to work in the same clothes she wore last night, deliberately, so that everyone would know she never went home. She was running a campaign, and he was, though he would not admit it yet, starting to enjoy being campaigned for. And there was a night that Hazel's father said something awful to her, so Ian called in to check on her. He asked, "Are you okay? Can you hear me?" Simple words, the kind anyone might say. But Hazel has spent her whole life being the person who was never actually asked. She felt caring in his voice and didn't know what to do with it. She told him she was busy and she would call back tomorrow. Then her doorbell rang. She grabbed a baseball bat before opening the door. Standing outside was Ian, holding sandwiches, the same kind she brought him when he was at the hotel, which had become famous because of the scandal. He had gone to buy them himself, stood in line himself. If you can picture it, a grand prince, waiting his turn at the sandwich shop like anyone else, thinking about what she would want to eat. And he could have sent someone, anyone. He didn't. He went because he wanted to. And he went alone because he wanted the time with her. And he stood in line at the sandwich shop because he was trying to, in this very small but human way, to do something for her that required nothing except showing up. The prince, who had never had to do anything ordinary in his life, choosing to do something ordinary for her. He brought her to his private residence for safety because she's been getting harassment with eggs thrown at her on the street. So she settled there and he called her to check if she likes her room. And late that night, they sat together in the living room. She's keeping him company while he worked. And then he answered her question about why he's doing all this with 3 reasons. 1, your family has money. 2, you're beautiful. And 3rd is a thing that he didn't have to say. But he said, if I face condemnation, I believe you understand me. What he meant was, we're both the same. We're both handed a world that decided what we're allowed to want before we had any say in it. I think you will understand what it feels like to fight for your whole life for something that was told that wasn't yours. And I think he also meant, I want you to understand me. And I want you to know that I already understand you. And it was around this time that the palace showed its teeth. One morning, Castle Beauty was raided. Documents seized. The official reason? Hazel had wandered into the restricted area of the palace at the birthday banquet and is now being investigated as a potential threat to the royal family. And of course, it had to happen during a time when Ian is doing a sacred ceremony for the royal family and he's sealed off and unreachable. Now watch what Hazel does. She doesn't panic. She doesn't wait to be rescued. From where she's being held, she finds a loyal steward who can enter the restricted ceremony area as long as he has Ian's official identity tablet. So she gives it to him. The message travels from the steward to her assistant droid to Ian. And Ian walks out of the sacred ceremony. He returns to the palace and confronts the investigators to their faces. Who authorized this? Apparently, Queen Mother did. She appears and says so herself. And Ian, in front of everyone, in front of servants, tells her, if you suspect Hazel, you suspect me too. He was not going to let her be implicated alone. And before it can escalate, Hazel, the brilliant theatrical Hazel, pretends to faint, ends the confrontation, and hands everyone a graceful exit. Later, she warned him, you defended me in front of servants. People will talk. He said servants weren't there. And she said, are you sure? There's no way none of them will gossip. And she was right. The gossip moved through the palace within days. And the Queen Mother, hearing it, began for the first time believe that there might be something between Ian and Hazel. It might be real. Which is funny because the two of them hadn't figured out yet for themselves. And there was a night not long after that I keep coming back to. The palace has a curfew, even for Grand Prince. He's working late, so Hazel showed up anyway on a pretext, carrying tea for him. And the two of them end up meeting at the palace wall, in the dark, past when anyone was supposed to be out. Like 2 teenagers sneaking out to see the person they weren't supposed to be seeing. And that's what it looks like. 2 adults, one of them loyal, hiding from the curfew like kids. And they talked, the kind of quiet that only exists when everyone else has gone to sleep. And at some point, Ian looked at her with the way that he's been trying not to look at her for weeks. And he put his hand on her cheek. She startled. He said, stay still. And then he kissed her. There was a camera nearby. That's what he told her afterwards. There's a camera. They should lean in for appearances. And technically, yes, a camera existed, but there was no reason for a grand prince to sneak past curfew time to go to the back of the palace wall and put his hand on this woman's face and kiss her just for appearances. There was no one around that needed convincing. The only person that he was convincing was himself. That this was still a performance. That he still has control of what was happening to him. Hazel pulled back and said, "There was a camera? Let's give them a better angle." He looked at her and laughed. She was impossible, and he was already in trouble. The next day, they went to a baseball game together. Ian wanted to wear a team jersey with her, but his assistant Chad said, let's not do that. Because of political optics, of taking sides, he deferred, but he wanted to. And when the kiss cam found them, they kind of share a moment. But her friend Henry, the prime minister, Hazel's old friend from school, invited Hazel to dinner afterwards. And Ian immediately inserted himself. Wouldn't it be strange to arrive together and leave separately? I'll join. He has absolutely no interest in watching Henry and Hazel having dinner alone. He has every reason not to be there, but he goes anyway. He's obviously, transparently jealous, and he would rather invent a logical excuse than to admit that. Henry notices all of this. He and Hazel has known each other ever since school days. He actually has been in love with her for a long time, quietly. He never said it, but he always makes sure she gets what she needed and never asked for anything back. When she sold the key to the archery range as a teenager, he saw her do it, but he said nothing because she wanted it, and therefore he wanted it for her. He still believes he has a chance. He will believe it, even though he sees Ian is falling for Hazel and he sees Hazel resist it. He still believes somewhere there's a gap and that he still has a chance. At dinner, Hazel has discovered something about Ian's life that she has never thought about. He couldn't eat at the stadium. He couldn't eat raw food like sashimi or any of it because of poisoning risk, because he was surveillance, scheduled, restricted in 100 different ways that she never imagined. So she asked him, what else can you not do? And he remembered something. As a child, playing with other children, he was pretending to be king, a child's play. But he got slapped for it, told it was a mockery. He has never, not even once in his life, been allowed to want something standing right next to him. And you hold on to that. It matters more than almost anything else in the story. After these thoughts, he slid the sashimi toward her and said, you should enjoy this now. You won't be able to after the royal wedding. Behind the shiny appearances, the composure, the perfect suits, the way he moves through the room like he was built for it, they're just a child who had carried adult consequences before he was even old enough to understand them. A boy slapped for a child's play. He was never permitted to simply be a kid. And it's sad in a very sophisticated way that no one ever let him. Back at the residence, Court Lady Cora, who is Ian's most senior attendant with decades of loyal protocol in human form, is now beginning to formally train Hazel in etiquette, posture, language, decorum, history. By the end of the evening, Hazel has somehow reversed the entire arrangement and was teaching Cora Pilates. Ian walked into this in the middle and Hazel ran into him, hugged him, and whispered, make her go away. And he did. He took Cora with him, visibly happy to be the person who gives Hazel what she wants. And then one night, Ian's phone rang, and it was Hazel. She said, I'm only going to say this once. I'm on your side. A pause, and then she immediately ruined it by clarifying that as husband and wife, they were a team, so of course they'd be on the same side, strictly professional. But for one moment before the clarification, Ian heard it the way it actually was. Someone on his side. Not for politics, not for optics, just on his side. He smiled after they hang up and made plans to go home early. But his evening did not go the way he planned. Because the young king, the 8 years old, the actual reigning monarch of the country at this time, wanted to go for a drive in a Bugatti. He threw a loyal tantrum until everyone agrees. And the plan was modest. Hazel drives, windows up, escort cars in the front and back, and Henry is following close behind, and it started slowly and carefully. But the young king complained, "It's too slow." Hazel pressed on the gas a little bit more. But the brake stopped responding. The car is accelerating and she cannot stop it. They are in city traffic, there's red lights, there's other cars, there's pedestrians. Hazel is an extraordinary driver. She navigates it through a skill that's almost unbelievable, cutting across the lines, going the wrong direction when she has to, glazing the car along the bridge to try to bleed off the speed. But she tells Henry on the phone, the brakes aren't working. And then Ian's car appeared in front of her. Ian's positions his vehicle sideways across the road. He uses the side of his own car, the weakest point, the least protected point, as a physical barrier to stop hers. The impact, the cars collide, the Bugatti stops. And then, through the smoke, Hazel watches Ian step out of his car with blood on his face. There is a terror in that moment. A young king is in the car, the brakes were tampered with. Who would do this and why? But underneath all of it is a louder and more personal question. Ian is the Grand Prince, the regent, the most scrutinized man in the country, a man who is not permitted a single reckless moment. And this is how much he loves her? This recklessly? This completely? He didn't calculate. He didn't find another way. He saw her in danger and he put himself between her and what was coming, without a second thought. As someone who's trying to ascend to a throne, that's either the most reckless thing he has ever done or the most honest. At the hospital, Hazel went to find Ian the moment she knew he was awake. She walked into his room and started scolding him at full volume. How could you jump in front of a car like that? Are you hurt? Are you okay? You even hurt your face. That's the only thing you have got going for you. She's mocking him while being completely terrified. She's furious at him for scaring her and doesn't know how to say that in a way that doesn't sound like a joke. Ian looked at her and smiled because he knew exactly what she was doing. He reached out to look at the cut on her forehead. She stepped back instinctively. She's not used to being cared for, not used to someone's hand coming toward her with the intention of checking if she's all right. He said quietly, "Come here. You're injured." She said, "Why are you treating me like this? As if you're like madly in love with me." She said it. She was trying to dismiss it. And she named it. She looked at what was right in front of her and called it what it is. As a joke, as a deflection, because she can't call it what it is for real. Not yet. Someone had tampered with the brakes. The investigation will wind through corporate payment trails, eliminate witnesses, and a danger that turned out to be much closer than anyone expected. What you need to understand is this. Someone wanted Ian and Hazel's story to end, and whoever it was, they're willing to kill to make it happen. The story on the news only reported that Hazel had been speeding, not that the brake had been tampered with. So Castle Beauty's stock dropped hard. And in the hallway outside the hospital rooms, Henry found a moment alone with her. He told her, "Marrying into the palace is dangerous. You're doing this for convenience and status. Well, you know what? Marry me instead." What neither of them know is that Ian heard every word of it. He was just sitting outside the doorway. He heard Hazel call their marriage a matter of convenience. He heard his friend propose to the woman that he loves. The next day, when Hazel came back to Ian's residence, she was told to leave. She called him. He didn't answer. She called again. Nothing. Silence. She went to the palace to confront him herself. Was this about Queen Mother? Was this about Henry? What did he overheard? Did he hear something? Ian told her, well, someone tampered with the car. He's investigating it, but the plan is changing. He said, let's not get married. The reason he gave her was true, but it wasn't the whole truth. He said, she has too many enemies. The Grand Prince who marries someone who breaks every rule is gonna put the crown at risk. He can't protect her and the crown at the same time. Now here's a real reason, the one he only said out loud to his assistant Chad. When Ian was a boy, his mother died in a car accident, and he was in the car directly behind her. He watched it happen. And he has carried that night every day ever since. The guilt of a child couldn't do anything, the nightmares that still come for him every night as a grown man. And when Hazel's body went out of control in front of him, something in him stopped thinking entirely. He didn't calculate the risk. He didn't weigh in on being a grand prince against being a person. He just moved because he has failed to say his mother once. And some part of him has been waiting his whole life for a second chance to not fail again. It breaks my heart a little, honestly, that he had to face something so close to the same horror twice in his own lifetime. But it's also the bravest thing about him, that he looked at the possibility of losing someone that he loved the exact same way again and refused to let it happen. He didn't hesitate to put himself in the path of the car, not because he's reckless, but because he had already decided that somewhere deep and old in himself, that he would rather be the one that breaks than to watch it happen to someone else again. He sent Hazel away not because he stopped loving her. He sent her away because loving her had to show him that in the space of exact one accident, had shown him how much he stood to lose. Not long after, back at Ian's private residence, something happened between them that I keep coming back to. Hazel had come to confront him about the sudden distance, the silence, the closed door, the reason that he wouldn't fully explain. They were in the living room, and she was furious. They were fighting, and she picked up a bowl that happened to be resting there and pointed at the cat outside the window. Ian panicked. He grabbed the bowl and cut his hand on it. She stopped, took out a cloth, bandaged his hand without ceremony like it was the most natural thing in the world. And while she did it, she told him, this is how you protect someone. You go on defense, you hold the bowl, you don't bend, you don't retreat, you don't compromise. That's how we get what we want. It was a fight that became tender. Hazel is a natural leader, not just in the boardroom, but with people, with situations, with the question of how power actually works. And every time she says something like this, something precise and intelligent and completely her own, you could feel Ian absorbing it. He didn't need her to be smaller so he can feel bigger. He allowed her brilliance. He let himself to be taught. And when she wrapped his hand, he was embarrassed. He was paying attention. He was learning from her and falling further at the same time. Now comes the inner court banquet, the most prestigious social event in the country. All the women line up to enter in order of rank. Hazel has no rank. She was last. And then Ian appeared. He walked directly to the back of the line, offered his arm, and said, teach me how to be a leader. She took his arm. They walked past everyone together, both in white suits, both looking like equals, almost like it was their palace. At some point of that evening, everyone changed for the second half of the banquet into ball gowns and formal suits, the kind of event that kind of looks like a scene from the movie. Ian came back dressed like in the deep blue suit with gold tassel on his shoulders, kind of decoration you expect on like a Disney prince. And Hazel came back as well in a cream chiffon gown, hair down, looking like a princess in the same story. They entered together and took the floor for the first dance, alone in the center of the room, under the eyes of everyone. It felt like Cinderella. At the end of the dance, Ian knelt down, produced a ring, and said, compared to my pace, this may be much slower, but will you take my hand in marriage? Hazel was genuinely shocked. The firework went off outside, the crowd cheered. He placed a large sapphire ring on her finger, the kind that belongs in a fairy tale, and then he led her to the young king and asked for his blessing. The child king looked at his mother. Queen Mother shook her head. Then he looked at his uncle and made his first independent decision as a king. You have my blessing. I wish you great happiness. Henry stood somewhere in a crowd, quietly heartbroken. Queen Mother stood in disbelief. Ian pulled her into the dance floor, not out of warmth, but because he needed to talk to her. And the dance floor was the only space they have privately in the room full of cameras. She said, "Do you think I'll just accept this?" He said he had to be honest with her when he told her that he wasn't going to marry Hazel. He meant that at the time. But then he said, "For someone who's so strict on procedure and tradition like you, was it proper to burn my brother's final edict?" She went still. He had known. He had known for a while. He had been waiting for this exact moment to say it out loud. He asked her to keep smiling. There were many eyes on them. Not long after, Queen Mother invited the newly engaged couple to a dinner. That has nothing to do with celebration. She asked Ian directly, in front of everyone, can you truly say he has no ambition to hold the dorm? That he wasn't position himself against the young king? Hazel cut it short. Before he could go further, she took his arm and made her excuses to leave. When they're outside, she told him, "Don't worry. Once we're married, I'll clear everything that stands in your way." Ian, he's charming completely. "Then take me away tonight. I don't want to stay here." Like a prince who wants for once to be the one rescued. So she took him for a drive. Windows down, no destination. And somewhere in that drive, no cameras, no protocol, no one watching the Grand Prince do something as ordinary as sitting in a car with the wind in his face. He told her it felt like flying. She heard that. And she wanted to give him more of it. So she took him somewhere he had never been. Her yacht. She wanted to give him one night where he can be a person and not a prince. She fed him sashimi that he's not supposed to, loyal protocol, restriction and all of it. But she said, "Tonight, there's no one watching. Tonight, you can do whatever you want." They went to the very front of the yacht. She stood there at the bow, arms out, the steady lights glowing in the water behind her. He stood behind her, holding her waist, kind of like Titanic. And they're recreating this feeling they have on the drive, except this time, there's nothing between them and the open water. And he couldn't stop looking at her. He could look anywhere, but he chose to look at her. He said, "I thought you wanted me to fly. Why are you the one flying?" "Oh, you want to switch?" "No." They tripped, she fell, and he went down with her. Then, very gently, he turned her. So she was on her back, and he was looking down at her, his face close enough where you can see every detail of it. And up close like that in the low light, with the city shimmering behind him, he looks captivating, like something out of a dream that she hadn't let herself have. He said, "I thought you said I could do whatever I want tonight." He kissed her slowly. She put her arms around his neck and kissed him back. No more thinking, just feelings. Out on the water with the twinkling lights of the yacht above them and the distant glow of the shore. In a moment that felt like freedom. And like finally, something true. Before I tell you what happens next, I need to tell you about Queen Mother. Because she's not just the obstacle in the story. She is a person carrying something she has never been able to put down. Let's call her Eve. Eve has spent her entire adult life inside the palace that she didn't choose. She married Ian's brother, the king, because her father, Lord Peter, arranged it. She has a son she loves. She fought for the sunstorm with every tool that she has, including tools that she should never have chosen. Here is what I can tell you about her right now. And no more than this. Every cold look Eve gives Ian isn't as simple as it seems. There's something underneath the scheming that she has never said out loud to anyone. Something about the way that she watches him that doesn't quite match enemy. I'll tell you why it is when she's ready to tell you herself. For now, just watch her carefully. She matters more than she seems. Because she's not a simple person. She made catastrophic choices, but none of it is simple. After the yacht, Ian and Hazel both went home and lay awake for most of the night. Hazel, she's panicking quietly, turning the night over in her head. What'd I do? Well, it's not like I threw myself at him, did I? This is unacceptable. Like, something is wrong with me. The next morning, she went to the Catholic church and asked the priest for exorcism because she felt possessed. And of course, he just closed his door on her. Here's what I think about Hazel. She may not have liked anyone like this before, not like this. She has been so laser focused on building her life, on the company, on the fight, on proving herself, on every turn that there has never been any room for it. She doesn't recognize what she's feeling because she's never felt it. A woman who's extraordinary at business is sometimes terrible at love. Not because she's lacked the capacity, but she just never had the practice. She runs into Henry outside the church, and he gives her a ride. And in the car, she mentions how Ian likes to smile when he's driving. And Henry feels it. She's always thinking about Ian. So he wants her not to get too attached. This is a fake marriage, after all. She says, of course, I'm not an idiot. Although she is an idiot, just doesn't know yet. Now, Prime Minister Henry, we have already met him. We know he went to school with Hazel, they've been friends for years, and he's been quietly in love with her. But what we need to understand before the wedding is what that love actually is capable of. Henry is thoughtful and principled and generally committed to the crown. He is also a man who loves a woman so much that he has started to compromise every other thing that he is. He has managed to keep these two things separate for a long time, but watching Hazel fall for Ian, watching it happen up close while managing all the political chaos that surrounds them, is doing something to him. He still believes he has a chance. He keeps believing it. He keeps telling himself the story where she turns around and sees him, and right up until it's no longer possible to tell himself that story. And by the time it becomes impossible, he has already done things he cannot undo. And the wedding planning is turned out to include things that Hazel never expected. A doctor's checkup for both of them, a formal gift ceremony, a family dinner at her father's house. With Ian sitting across the table from the man that has spent her entire life making her feel like an afterthought. Her father was stiff through the whole meal, impatient, and then he said something in front of Ian. It's not easy to promise to take care of someone when the loyal family is known for its tragedies. Silence at the table, and Hazel broke. Really? Now you show that you care? Where were you when I got into a car accident? And are you going to give us a wedding gift or not? When your son, Sam, got married, you give them buildings and stocks. Now your only daughter is getting married. And what are you giving? There were tears in her eyes when she said it. She excused herself on the table. Ian followed her to her room. And what he found there told him everything he needed to know about the woman he was marrying, without her having to explain a single word. Awards, covering every surface, every wall, years of accomplishments stacked so densely there was barely any room left for anything else. A trophy case that was actually a scoreboard, proof collected obsessively of a award she has never been once told she was. Hazel has been intelligent and ambitious her entire life, and I think that room is the whole reason why. Achievement was the only currency she ever learned worked. The only proof that she had that she was worth something in a house where love was never going to be handed to her for free. And I think it's part of why love itself is such a foreign language to her. She spent her entire waking hour building a career, building armor, building proof. There was simply no room left to learn how to be loved. It's not that she can't. She just never had the practice. She told him to leave her alone, but he sat down next to her instead. She said she doesn't think her father likes him. And Ian says, well, it doesn't matter. As long as he's genuine, that's enough. And then she looked at him and finally asked a question that she's been circling for weeks. Do you have feelings for me? Yes, I do. He said, are you worried that I'm not going to let you go? Don't be. I'm not going to let you bind to me. You should take everything. Money, honor, my heart. She couldn't accept it yet, so she deflected the only way she knew how, with a joke about money. And they laughed. And underneath that joke, something has been said out loud by both of them. That neither one was ready to fully hold yet. Now the wedding, a traditional ceremony, a full royal procession through the entire city, the entire country watching. And something happened at the wedding that I want you to hold on to before everything falls apart. Hazel stepped out in her wedding gown. Her father was there, the man who had almost never given her anything that she actually needed. Her brother, her sister-in-law, all of them in traditional clothing. And her father looked at her and smiled. A real smile. Directly only at her for the first time in her life. She has waiting for that smile since she was a little girl. Ever since she pointed at the man and said, I'm your daughter. And watched his wife faint. And it came finally on her wedding day. But then Hazel started coughing. And she collapsed. She was rushed to a local hospital. The investigation that followed would eventually reveal that she has been poisoned. And the substance in her system is the medication that Ian occasionally takes. And during the ceremony, she has stumbled and knocked into the ceremony cups. And they switched the cups. So she had drank actually from Ian's cup. Which means the real target was Ian. Someone had placed Ian's medication in his ceremony cups at a dose designed to harm him. Someone who knew about his private medical records, someone with access to the palace and the ceremony and the specific intimate knowledge of what Ian takes and when. This was not a warning. This was an attempt to kill him. When Court Lady Cora found Ian and told him Hazel's awake, the Grand Prince, who has never been permitted to run in his entire life, who has never broken into a run because it simply wasn't done, he ran through the palace for the first time. You don't know you need to run until something matters enough, and everything could wait, and he couldn't. He found her awake. He held her in the way that someone holds a person that they thought they lose. Like a boy who had completely lost his way, crying. I thought you were dying. I thought I lost you. The wedding night was not the wedding night that either of them had imagined. It was in Ian's room at the palace. Not romantic, but except it was. Hazel was still hooked onto the heart monitor, the soft electric beeping in the only sound in the room. And then the door opened. Ian walked into the room, wearing a robe, opening his chest, looking unfairly gorgeous in a way that is simply unfair, and said, today is our wedding night. Are you ready? The monitor immediately went wild. He was teasing her, but also he meant it. They were technically married, and he was choosing to spend the night here, in this room with her. Not at a distance, not performing concern from a distant chair across the room. Here, they ended up in the same bed. She built a pillow wall because she is still somehow in denial about her own feelings, insisting to herself this doesn't mean anything, that she's in complete control. He gently removed every pillow, and he held her. The monitor kept announcing her heartbeat to the room, loud and undeniable. She said, "Do you think we can turn that off?" And he said, "No. I like hearing it. It tells me you're still alive." She looked at his face. His eyes were closed. She leaned over and kissed him softly on the cheek. "Just to reassure you," she says. A few days later, Hazel at her old school is giving an opening speech, her first moment as a grand princess. When she introduced herself with that title, Ian watched from backstage and smiled. A private kind of smile that isn't for everyone. And then everyone's phone buzzed simultaneously. The marriage contract has leaked. The divorce clause, 3 years maximum. Reporters flooded in. Cameras everywhere. Voices demanding, "Is this true? Is it all fake?" Unrest rushed to Hazel all at once. Thoughts she couldn't catch or organize. A kind of blankness that replaced all of her sharpness. She had handled every crisis in her life with precision, but in front of this many cameras, this many eyes, she was blanking out. She started to step back. Then a man steps right in front of her. Ian. He's back to reporters. He's facing her, blocking everything. "Look at me." He took her hand and walked her off stage. The fallout was catastrophic. Protests moved in form, Castle Beauty stock collapsed, and accusations flew about the palace fire, the Ian's ambitions, about the legitimacy of everything. And Henry was managing the PR. And managing in the way that you manage things when you secretly want them to fall apart slowly. He suppressed, he redirected, he shaped the narrative while dismantling the foundation underneath. In the middle of all of it, Henry found Hazel. He said, "Do nothing, say nothing." He was protecting her, or performing protection while actually doing the opposite. Hazel, with tears in her eyes, said, "I'm not looking for protection." Henry looked at her. "So you're not pretending anymore, are you? I thought you and Ian were just for show." Hazel thought about it, and for the first time she said it out loud. "I don't think that's true anymore. I like him. A lot." Henry went very still. Hazel went to her father. She knelt before him. This woman, who has never once answered to defeat, who has clawed her way through every room that tried to keep her out of it, got on her knees and asked for help. Not for herself, for Ian. "I can save myself, but he needs to be safe. Please help me save him." She could probably find her way through it alone. She's clever enough, but she's too emotionally invested in this to make the decision clearly. She went to her father because she trusts his intelligence more than her own right now, because she knows he can see what she cannot see through the feeling that is currently making her very hard to think. And a woman who has never loved before does not know yet how to protect someone she loves. She's learning in this moment what that costs. Her father gave her the advice that broke her heart. Divorce. That's the only way. That night, she came back to the palace. She hugged Ian, then said, "Let's get a divorce." And she said it with the sharpest word she owned. The company's failing. The stocks are tanking. Her father's ill. You said the power to loyalty is to be loved by the people. But you lost it all. So what can you provide me now? Ian said, "Don't do this. Please. Not you too." There were tears in his eyes. She didn't stop. "You told me to just keep taking, but I'm only losing everything. Do you still wish to keep me bound to you?" Hold both things at once here. What is she saying and what is she doing? She's choosing to be the most painful thing in his life right now. in this exact moment because it's the only way she knows how to protect him. And he's hearing every word. He is receiving the cruelest things she knows how to say from the person he loves the most. And he doesn't know yet that it's love that's doing it. Before any of that though, something happened that showed Hazel and us exactly who Ian becomes when someone he loved is threatened. Lord Peter went to the young king directly. He showed him the headlines, told the boy that your own uncle was responsible for the fire that killed your father. He's pressuring him to formally end Ian's regency. The young king is 8 years old. He's crying. Ian walked in on it. He grabbed Lord Peter, drove him back against the wall, one hand at his throat. How dare you threaten His Majesty? He had his attendant take the boy elsewhere so he didn't have to watch. Then he turned back to Lord Peter, still gripping him. If you want me gone, you have to kill me first. If you ever threaten my nephew again, you will not have a merciful death. Hazel watches afar from the doorway. She has never seen this version of him. And then Ian walked out, found his nephew still shaking, and knelt down to speak to him in the gentlest voice that he owns. Whenever you're scared, always come to me. In front of Hazel, Ian has always been soft, elegant, the kind of composed that makes it hard to imagine him raising his voice at anyone. So it's rare, genuinely rare, to see him angry like that. And what strikes me the most isn't the anger itself, is that even in that much rage, with his hand still at another man's throat, he was still completely clear-headed about his nephew's innocence. He's never once let the boy become collateral in his fury. I think that's what makes Ian righteous. Not just powerful, he can also be furious and still know exactly who deserves protection and who doesn't. Hazel wasn't afraid of what she just seen. She was encouraged by it. She told him, if you want to protect something, you have to fight back. And she would need that reminder herself very soon. Afterwards, Ian found a private space and wept. He had been stripped of his duties, publicly despised, and the woman he loved had just left him, using the sharpest word she has. He has nothing. But Hazel wasn't done. The next day, in front of the full loyal council, the room convened to strip her and Ian of everything. Hazel did something no one in that room expected. She didn't defend herself. She went on offense. Investigate me. Remove my rank. Approve the divorce. But whatever you decide, I will prove that Ian has nothing to do with the poisoning, the fire, or any of it. She put herself directly in a line of fire to clear his name. And on the outside, before reporters can even finish forming a damaging question, Sam, Hazel's half-brother, who's incompetent and chronically overlooked half-brother, he got there first. Have you actually read the contract? There's no benefit of Ian on it. Why would my sister poison herself when she has everything? Ask her to draft it as a protective measure. I was being an overprotective brother. They're just in love. And if you keep publishing false allegations, I'm going to save every article as a PDF. He turned away, and it was unexpectedly the most useful thing he did in his life. Inside the council chamber, just as Hazel's plan seemed to be working, people arrived carrying a formal edict. The young king had named Prince Ian as king. Lord Peter was furious. There's nothing left for him to do. Ian declined it publicly, which sounds like a rejection, but it isn't. Korean royal custom requires that the ruler decline the honor 3 times before formally accepting. By declining in front of everyone, Ian also makes sure that the entire country understood that this is the boy king's choice to give the crown away, not a seizure. Ian looked at Hazel as he walked out. Why did you put everything on yourself? Did you not believe that I could protect us? You didn't trust me? And walked away, angrily, in a particular way that people are angry when they're actually terrified. Now, the story gets worse. Henry has been all along playing a game that none of them fully understood. He had discovered the evidence that linking Lord Peter, Eve's father, to the poisoning attempt. He had gone to Eve with it, and he had accepted the fake marriage document from her in exchange for his silence. He had leaked the contract. He had advised Ian to voluntarily step back from his duties. Step by step, he has been dismantling everything for Hazel, or for his idea of her. For the version of the story where she turns around once Ian's gone and finally saw him. That night, Hazel had texted Ian over and over. No response. Court Lady Cora found her and told her the palace door is still open. Hazel got in a car, texted one more time. I'm sick. And he finally responded. She arrived at his private residence. He was in the living room, cold, standing completely still. She opened her mouth and said, I like you. I like the Grand Prince. A lot. And then she ran at him and hugged him. I am confused. No, you're not. You know I only asked for divorce because I want to protect you. That's why you're angry. She kissed him softly. He still didn't move. She pulled back. Do you not want me? I do. There's a relief in that moment that almost hurts, because what she did, deciding to sacrifice herself without telling him, without letting him choose, did feel for a moment like a betrayal. She made a unilateral decision about his life, dress it up as love and give him no say in it. And that kind of thing can break something. So when he said, I do, when he saw through everything she had done and chose to believe in the love that was underneath it, it felt like being able to breathe again. Like the moment the song has been tensing through finally resolved. That night, he told her the thing he never told anyone. The night that his brother died, the night of the palace fire. He was right next door. He heard Eve screaming at the late king. You want to give the crown to Ian? I'd rather see you die. He heard everything. His nephew, even smaller than, also has been there too. A child in the hallway hearing his mother say these words to his father before the fire started. In the aftermath, Ian had watched Eve crown her own son as king. He had the choice to fight it. He loved his nephew. He didn't want to take a throne from a grieving child. But underneath that love, there was something else. The clear, undeniable feeling that he wanted it. He had always wanted it. Not for power, but for the chance to do something different with it. And he had carried guilt about it for wanting for years. He told Hazel all of it, and she said, it's okay. You can be greedy. But before this, before any of what was still coming, she told him something else. Something that she would remind him again at the very end of the story. I thought your dream was treason. Turns out it's a revolution. He told her he never wanted a status. He was just angry. His whole life about the opportunities that he lost. And he knows somehow from very early on that she was his revolution. Ian has always appeared soft and elegant, visually harmless, in a way that make it hard to believe that he was really going to fight for anything. Watching him throughout the story, you kept wondering, is he going to reach for it? And when he finally did, when he finally said out loud that he wanted the throne, Hazel didn't hesitate. She had spent her whole life being told that her ambition was inappropriate, her hunger was too much, her wanting something was to be ashamed of. She was the first person in his life who looked at what he wanted and said, yes, want it. You're allowed. Eve, meanwhile, felt like she was running the dead end. Her son, the boy king, came to her that night before everything ended, and she asked him one more time, are you going to take it back? The throne. He said no. And she was furious. Don't you know what I did to protect your throne? Don't you know what your father did? And her son, through the tears, said a thing that undid her completely. Yeah, I know. I was right next door. I heard everything. He had known, maybe all along. He knew his mother caused the fire that killed his father. And he also knew that because he is somehow wiser than any other 8-year-old could have been, that she never meant for it to happen. Mother, he told her, I'm sorry for disappointing you. An 8-year-old apologizing to an adult who had built her entire life around protecting him. It's the same sad cycle Ian had lived as a child. Boy forced to carry out adult consequences long before he could have had to. Except this time, it's even harder to watch because the child is actually king. And as a mother, I think what breaks Eve in this moment isn't just the fact that she got caught, it's realizing her son has been carrying this truth all along at this age, protecting her for having to say it first. Children are so much stronger than we give them credit for, but that doesn't mean they should have to be. The same night, Eve called Ian to the council hall. One final conversation before the final edict was formally decided. He had time, so he agreed to go. He didn't know Lord Peter was already there, waiting with men in shadows. Hazel was walking the palace ground when the explosion hit. The ground shook. Smoke poured from the hall. She spotted her assistant Joyce in the courtyard, trembling. And she said, he is in the council hall. Hazel ran toward the fire. The assistant Joyce and Chad tries to chase after Hazel, but the burning wreckage blocked the way. Hazel wrapped her jacket around her hand and pushed through the door and ran inside. Everything was on fire. Ian was on the ground, overcome by fumes, barely conscious. He heard her voice calling for him, and he didn't want her to come in closer. She, of course, ignored him completely, but she couldn't pull him out alone, so she screamed for help. If anyone's out there, please, please help. And eventually, Chad found a way through and carried Ian out. They both survived, but Hazel's hand was burned. When Ian woke up and found her sitting next to him, he looked at the bandage on her hands and said, you shouldn't have been there. How could I not be? You were inside. And she started crying, just completely, the way you cry when you feel genuinely too big to perform. She had run into fire for him. She hadn't thought about it. She hadn't weighed the risk. She just run. Henry had shown his hand with fire, and Hazel now know about it because she has Joyce. Why Ian went to the council hall alone? And she said he was there because he got a text by Henry. Hazel had her answer. Eve had figured it out too. She had heard Lord Peter slip, mentioning about the gas explosion before anyone has officially called that. She went to confront with him with the evidence, and he didn't deny it. He told her plainly, Ian knows too much. Ian has to be removed. Everything Eve has sacrificed, her love, her choices, the fire that killed her husband that she never intended to start, all of it will come out if Ian took the throne. And her father was protecting the family by trying to murder his son's uncle. Something in Eve broke, or maybe something her family clarified. She put on plain clothes, not loyal attire, nothing ceremonial, and walked into the Ian's office. She knelt before him. I have to report a grave offense. My father is trying to kill you. I have the evidence. Why are you telling me this? Are you asking me to forgive him? No, I'm asking you to punish him. And me. You think I'll do it? Spare his majesty. That's all I ask. She told him one more thing before she left. Be wary of Henry. He knows everything. He hid it from you. He has his reasons. Ian immediately understood what those reasons are. He called Henry in. He praised him for making arrests on the arson case. The loyal guy who had turned himself in, a man who was obviously offered up as a decoy. A loose end Henry was tidying off. Ian played along with the fiction. Then he turned. What about the poisoning case? Henry said Lord Peter was responsible. Ian asked why there has been no punishment. He says, well, they're still considering since it's a delicate situation. He tried to kill me. What is there to consider? Well, the crown cannot crumble. Well, once I take the throne, I'm going to abolish the monarchy. Henry stared at him. You get everything you wanted and now you want freedom too? The freedom won't be mine alone. Lord Peter is now arrested. The evidence become public. Eve, watching the coverage, knew her own reckoning is coming soon. She hugged her son and said, whenever you're scared, go to your uncle. By then, the young king had come to Ian with the edict for the third time. The final formal offer. This time, the acceptance will be final. And Ian accepted. At the coronation ceremony, in front of the entire country, with everyone assembled, Ian sat in the throne that had cost so much, so many people, so many years, so many impossible choices. And the crowd cheered, long live the king. And the first thing the new king did was propose abolishing the monarchy. The public was shocked. The political backlash came immediately. Everyone connected the crown had something to lose. So Henry, the prime minister, used everything remaining tool to block it. Cutting royal funding, pushing Eve to turn against Ian, building institutional roadblocks. Hazel's answer, I have a lot of money. I'll fund the crown myself. The loyalist factions responded by launching an investigation into Castle Beauty, just to slow her down. But there was still a matter of Henry, the whole matter of Henry. At a formal meeting assembled to convince Ian to abandon the plan, Hazel walked in and placed her phone on the table. She pressed play. Henry's voice filled the room. Do you wish to see your only son follow your father's footsteps and be branded a criminal? I'm willing to do whatever it takes, as many times as necessary. The room went silent. Afterwards, just Ian and Henry alone. Ian asked the question directly. Did you really try to kill me? Yes. Tear in Ian's eyes. He had thought this was his friend. Why? Well, I told you to push Hazel away. I said I'd protect you if you did, and you wouldn't. I'm like this because of you. Well, she was never yours to begin with. Ian walked out. A public vote was held. The public voted yes, the monarchy was abolished. Ian's first and last significant act as a king, spending everything he had just to fought for on purpose to give away. The public was shocked when the announcement came, and in sitting with it for a moment, it made complete sense. Ian has been, from the very beginning, king of the people, not in the ceremonial sense, in the actual sense. He is unselfish, he wants fairness. His desire to be king was never about power. It was about the chance to do something with it before giving it away. He had only ever known how to be loyal, and he was willing to change all of that for the greater good for everyone. For himself, for the freedom he had wanted his whole life and never been able to name. The morning after the abolishment, Ian put on regular clothes, not a loyal suit, not anything ceremonial, just clothes, and he called out Hazel. And for the first time, she called him by his name. Not his title, not Grand Prince, not Your Highness. Ian. Just that. 3 years later, Hazel is back at Castle Beauty as CEO, and her father visits. He tells her finally and plainly that he never wanted her to lose. He just wanted her to stop fighting with everyone. He was afraid of her, maybe in the only language he knows how. She hears it. She doesn't let him entirely off the hook, but she hears it. And Ian has curated a museum for the last Korean monarchy. The crown, the robes, the documents, the history of something that existed for centuries and is now finally finished. He walked through it alone one night. He looked at the royal robe that caused so much pain to so many people. And then he leaves. And at a baseball game, Ian, Hazel, Joyce, and Chad out on a double date. And they're being ordinary loud and nobody's looking at him except when the kiss cam find them. Ian's wearing a team's jersey because he can and just because nobody's going to tell him not to. And when the cameras find them, they kiss and the crowd cheers. After the game, Ian tells Hazel something he has been keeping for a very long time. He fell in love with her for the first time they met at the school archery range. When she told him her name, something in him had already started this pull toward her, this recognition of someone who was fighting the same fight he was fighting, who refused to disappear the way he has sometimes wanted to disappear. He had been waiting in some part of himself ever since. Well, Ian thought they should redo it all, the real proposal this time, without the contract standing between them. Hazel stopped him. She said, they don't really need a new ring. They don't really need a new proposal. They don't need to redo the wedding. Because at that moment at the archery range, all those years ago, she had already fallen for him too. Maybe she didn't have the language for it then. Maybe she was too young and too focused and too armed to recognize what it was. But the feeling was there. It has always been there. She just needed the rest of the story to understand what it meant. The love story didn't start at the contract. It started at the beginning. It was always going to be this. Now, somewhere, a boy is going to school without a motorcade. He has a backpack, he has other kids, he has all the ordinary things a childhood is supposed to have. He does his homework, he's happy that his Uncle Ian's keeping in touch with him. And the woman in the red suit has everything she's ever wanted. And the prince, who was dismissed of his own crown, give it away. And they are finally exactly where they are always supposed to be. If this is first Lila Rain retelling that you watch, I make one of these every couple of weeks for a drama that actually did something to me. This one did. So if you want the next one, subscribe and I'll see you in the next story. Bye.